welcome back, friends. It is This Whole Life yet again, and you are back for another story of glory or something else. It is yet to be seen. We're back again with Dr. Anthony Isacco from St. Mary's University in Minnesota. Welcome back, Anthony. How are you?
I'm doing great. Good to be back. Thank you.
Good to be with you again. Yep. If you haven't listened to Anthony's episode previously to this one last week on depression and its clinical expressions, relationship to faith, I won't say stop what you're doing, because listen to this story and you'll hear exactly why you need to go back and listen to that other episode because of this story and everything that Anthony has to offer. Anthony, I know that part of your clinical work, part of your professional experience has been working with seminarians, with clergy, with religious sisters in their own psychological health and healing. So I'm wondering if there's a story that you have, especially related to clergy or seminarians. You know, we have many, many great priests and seminarians who listen to this whole life, but I would say the majority of our listeners are lay people who don't have the experience of living the seminary or ordained life. Is there a story that you have that you could offer that would help us lay people understand some aspect of priestly vocation that we wouldn't have access to otherwise?
Yeah, so I'm very blessed to work with that population, priests, women religious, seminarians, young men and women who are discerning a vocation to the church and are applying to different dioceses and communities. It's kind of like a call within a call to be able to work with that population. And I think one of the reasons why it's so important is because we often hear the negative stories of a bad priest or a bad nun and how that has a ripple effect out into the community. Yeah. One bad priest can impact thousands of people negatively. Yeah. And so I come at it as, well, one good priest could have a positive impact on thousands of people as well. And so if I could do one small part to contribute to a happy, holy, healthy priest or woman religious, then it has like a communal and kind of collective impact, And so that really drives me and gives me meaning and purpose. And it basically makes up about 95% of my clinical work is to work with that population.
Yeah. Any stories that you can think of that would highlight any of the challenges of the priestly vocation and anything that might help us lay people have a greater sense of understanding and empathy for the priest in our parishes? Yeah,
absolutely. So a lot of lay people I talk to, whenever I tell them I do evaluations and I work with applicants to the seminary and women religious, they usually kind of have two images in their mind of applicants. It's either like the Boy Scout kind of older altar server, like this little young saint, who's going to be like ordained and be like the next Saint John Paul II, overnight, like they're ready to like ordain them and canonize them immediately. Or they're like, are you screening out all the bad guys? Are you getting all... Yeah. And so I think one of the things that I try to educate lay people on is the church has really grown in discerning with these applicants over time and has really grown at that admission stage, and including the work of the psychologist. And the work of the psychologist during that early discernment and admission stage is to give a comprehensive evaluation that is not just to screen out the red flags and the bad guys or bad women applying, but to use the evaluation as a tool for growth. Because these people that are applying to seminaries and women religious communities are just that. They're people. They have their strengths, they have their flaws, they have their growth edges, just like anybody else. And so a good psychologist and a good psychological evaluation will kind of paint a beautiful mosaic of that human person and really respect their anthropology as a created person of God that is made in the image and likeness of God and is inherently good and worthy and has value and dignity. And if they're going to enter into a formation program, they have some work to do.
Yeah.
They have
right.
some work to do. And so the psychological evaluation, the psychologist can play a very valuable role. And so I feel most alive as a psychologist whenever I can bring my integrative skills to that role, and I can work with the seminary rector, the vocation director, the bishop, the applicant, and kind of communicate the psychological knowledge and science and practice in a way that all those stakeholders can say, oh, here's the person in front of us.
Yeah.
Here's their goodness. Here's their strengths. And now we have kind of some targets or a path forward that will help this young person, man or woman, move forward in their discernment and their formation.
Yeah. And something you said at the beginning, I think back to in the Archdiocese of St. Paul, Minneapolis, where we live and work, back in 2013 when the abuse scandal exploded here in the Twin Cities area. I think of seeing on the news the Diocese of Pittsburgh, and when the news broke there, my home diocese in Iowa of Davenport, and you could go on and on and on through dozens of dioceses in this country, around the world. How has that experience, you mentioned it a little bit, of like people asking, well, did you get the bad ones out? You know what I mean? How is having that history so close in the rearview mirror, how does that impact the work that you do, the work that dioceses and seminaries do? What does that do for you in your work now?
Well, I think that's kind of like the dark cloud that hangs over a lot of the work, but there's so much light in that darkness.
Yeah.
I am incredibly encouraged, and I'm personally inspired actually by the young people that show up at my door for an evaluation. They're laying it all on the line. They really are. They're saying, this is who I am. I'm here because I think God is calling me to this vocation, and I want to follow God's will. I think it's a very authentic and genuine disclosure that they're making that takes a ton of courage.
Yeah.
It's very countercultural in a lot of ways right now. I mean, they're really working hard to follow this calling and to see if they are the one that's supposed to answer this call. So I feel incredibly encouraged, and there's so much hope and light that kind of breaks through the bad news stories that are out there, the things that have caused a lot of darkness in the church and different dioceses.
Yeah.
But part of our job is to take a look at that and use the best tools that we have available to us in the screening process to see if there is a problem in that area of their life that should prevent them from entering into the seminary or women religious community and moving forward. So those aren't always the easiest conversations, but those are the necessary conversations that are part of the job.
Yeah, for the good of the church and for even the good of this man or woman, that they need to be in a place where there's a genuine calling, where there's a place for the safety and health of everybody. And I mean, to your point earlier about how much good one great priest can do, I think back to an earlier Storytellers episode of ours, where we talked to Father Nathan LaLiberte, a good friend of ours, and I know you've gotten to know him as well.
He's a good friend of our program. He's our university chaplain.
Exactly, right. So he's the chaplain at St. Mary's University here. He's going through a graduate program at St. Mary's as we speak. And he told his vocation story on an earlier episode, and he would be the first to say, I'm not exactly sure why they accepted me, but I'm really glad they did, because he was coming from an odd place, man. He was not the Boy Scout. Let me put it that way, right? He was not like canonizable material coming into minor seminary. But clearly, you mentioned the light and the darkness. Someone, or more people than one, saw a light in him where they were able to identify some psychological health, first of all, in the midst of maybe some chaotic environment. And they were able to help identify and help him to identify a genuine calling, which is really what the question is. Is there a genuine vocation here? How can we lift that up? How can we support it? And if not, how can we help that person understand in good discernment that there's another path for his good that is just not this one? Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, this doesn't happen often, but it has happened a few times where I've been out at a gathering, been wherever, at a retreat or what have you, and someone has come up to me and said, Dr. Isacco, and I said, yes, and I haven't recognized them at all. And they said, you evaluated me some time ago for the seminary or the diaconate or women religious community, and it was a tough conversation. You really kind of read me the riot act.
Yeah.
And I didn't get in. Turned out to be the best thing for me.
Wow.
Turned out to be the best thing for me. I'm now doing what God what was calling me to do, and so those kinds of stories are not prevalent, but they do happen and are a little bit affirming in terms of, sometimes you have to hold the line and be the person that delivers the bad news for a greater good.
Yeah. That no to seminary or religious life is really, hopefully, a yes to something that they really are called to, that is going to be a path of joy and freedom and holiness, and it's just not this one,
Correct.
I bet your shoulders scrunch up a little bit when they say, you evaluated me and you said no. You're like checking for the exits, you know what I mean? Like,
who me?
Yeah, right.
But we're all on the same team with the same goal. At the end of the day, I do want the best for the candidate that's in front of me, and I want them to do God's will too.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Well, you clearly are doing God's will in helping men and women discern, of helping the church be safe and healthy and led by great people. So thanks so much for your work with them. Thanks for being here again with us. And thanks for all you're doing here at St. Mary's as well.
Great. Thank you, Pat.